Supervisors meeting to order. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Ms. Baumke?
Here.
Mr. Cavalier?
Here.
Mr. Milday? Here. Ms. Sellers?
Here.
Mr. Snellings?
Here.
Mr. Sterling? Here. Mr. Thomas?
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you. This time I'd like to recognize Chief Lockhart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mark Lockhart, County Fire and EMS Chief. As you all know, the weather in Stafford can range from a day like today, which is absolutely gorgeous, to just downright nasty during the wintertime. Fire and Rescue's Office of Emergency Management, under the leadership of Mark Stone, has worked diligently to make sure that Stafford is indeed prepared for extreme weather situations. Here with us today is Mark Stone, also Chris Strong from the National Weather Service, representing the Stafford Community Emergency Response Team, Jessica Harvey, Rick Fitzgerald, I believe, from schools, and we don't have anyone from the Emergency Communications Center here, but they have all played an integral part in making sure that Stafford is prepared for extreme weather emergencies. In recognition of those efforts, the National Weather Service is here today to award Stafford their Storm Ready Community designation. Mr. Chairman, if I could ask you to join us here on the front, please, and I'll turn it over to Chris Strong.
All right. Hello, my name's Chris Strong from the U.S. National Weather Service, and I'm from the forecast office that serves the Stafford area. And one of the things we need to do from the weather side of things is to make sure that weather warnings, because certainly we have our nice days like today, we have days where there's thunderstorms that go through, but they're the truly disastrous days that happen once every 20 years, once every 100 years, or 500 years, that we really need to be ready for. And one of the key things is to make sure that weather information from our office, at the forecast office and the warning office, gets to the county, gets to the decision makers, gets to the public. And that's a large part of what the Storm Ready program is, which is a national program that you have to work through at the jurisdictional level to really tie yourself in with the National Weather Service to make sure that there's good relationships, good flow of information, to make sure that when we do get our weather disaster that happens every once in a generation or longer, that we're truly ready, we have the relationships to get through the aftermath, and that everybody is well warned as can be to make sure that people aren't getting struck unaware, because certainly a prepared populace is going to be better off than people that are caught without any warning, without any message. So part of the program is to get the community tied in through alert services to make sure that warnings get across, training programs like CERT, the Community Emergency Response Team, making sure that there's weather radios in the schools so they can get the message. All that, of course, is a great organizational effort that Mark Stone with Emergency Management and Chief Lockhart have helped to spearhead and organize for the county. So I'm here to recognize their efforts in making Stafford County. So I'd like to congratulate Stafford County for being storm ready at this time. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. We do have a certificate, a recognition letter, and a street sign, of which more can be ordered for the county to show their storm ready status.
Great. Thank you so much, and I want to especially thank the staff for just a wonderful job. When we ever have bad weather predictions, we have a command center that they go into, and believe me, it makes a tremendous difference to our citizens. So thank you very much for this designation. And by the way, are we having storms this afternoon? Somebody said we are. Chance of a small storm. But thank you so very much. We appreciate you being here. Thank you. This time I would like to recognize Mr. Tim Baruti.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tim Baruti, Deputy County Administrator. I have behind me a group of folks that work for Martin Briley, the Secretary of Commerce, the Governor of Virginia, as well as the Commonwealth at large. They are our team in Richmond, our economic development team in Richmond. They're here today in Stafford County to learn more about what we have to offer as far as sites and buildings. So we're delighted that they're here, and And I thought, Mr. Chairman, after I have Matt McLaren, our local regional rep, introduce these folks, that you might offer them a more formal welcome to Stafford County. So with that, Matt?
Thanks for having us here today. I am the regional person that is up here more often than the rest of us, but we all are here today with the Fredericksburg Regional Alliance, and I thought I'd go behind me, if I can remember everyone's name and title, and tell you what we all do generally. So I'm Matt McLaren, and I work in this region as a business expansion manager, and over here we have Lauren Stuhldreher, who also works in the business expansion group. Next to her, we have Alex Henley, who is with our communications and promotions and does our social media, blogging, and our newsletter. Next to her, we have Meredith Randall, who also works in the business expansion unit. And next to her, we have John Loftus, who runs our buildings and sites database and makes recommendations for projects that we're working on. Next to John, we have Mario Camaradella. He is our business attraction manager for the Northeast market. Next to him, we have Trey Akins, who is our regional rep for Virginia Jobs Investment Program, which is a workforce development incentive program. Holly Fick is next, and she is in the research group, and she puts together all of our research proposals for our projects. And lastly, but not least, we have Pandy Brazow, who is our business attraction rep. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you, all of you, for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here today. I understand you had a nice tour of our county, and you've seen some very interesting stuff. And I think, well, I don't think, I know, and I'll emphasize a little bit what our economic development folks have told you this afternoon and throughout the day, that we are a prime location for business. This board and previous boards have worked very hard to put together what we call the 10-point plan, and that plan is working. Right now, we have 40,000 jobs within the county, which means our residents don't have to travel as much to go to a job. And we are just a prime location, and I know that you will go back to your respective jobs, and you will start promoting Stafford very diligently, because I know with what you've seen today has been very impressive. I'd like to ask any of my fellow board members would have a comment.
I could only just echoing what you just said, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mildy. Anyone else? Once again, thank you all so very, very much. Come see us anytime, and you know, don't be strangers. And be safe going home. Thank you so much. This time, I'd like to recognize Dr. Benson with our school system for our monthly update, and hope you're doing well, sir.
I am, Mr. Chairman.
Good.
Thank you. Members of the board, Mr. Romanello, thank you for the opportunity to share a little bit more about the ongoing work in our school system. And I would say a prime location with a wonderful school system, right? Attractive. So thank you again for an opportunity to share a little bit more. Some of this is going to be kind of results-oriented this afternoon, because we've put some really positive things in place that I think are going to have a significant impact on delivery of services and help us attract and retain highly qualified teachers in the division. So I want to share a little bit about that with you all. I do have a handout that I circulated among board members. I'm not going to speak to everything that's in that handout, but I do want to provide that as a reference. A couple of things in terms of our some work that we're doing to try and streamline and make better use of resources within the organization. We've asked our middle school principals and our high school principals to take a look at at delivery of services and think about how we might be able to position ourselves to use itinerant teachers to share resources, to expand access to advanced level coursework in some cases. And what would have to look different in the school system in order for us to be able to do that. We move a fair number of students around during the course of the day. Once students arrive at school, we currently have 89 additional bus runs that occur throughout the day prior to dismissal. So kids come to school, they get to their home school, and then they spend some time moving about to participate in a variety of programs. We're looking for ways that we might be able to streamline some of that. Our middle schools, we anticipate having little, if any, movement of kids in this next school cycle by ensuring that we have a baseline expectation for electives across our middle schools, across the division as a whole, trying to focus on our division as a school system rather than a system of individual schools, and trying to make sure that regardless of what middle school you're attending, we have a common expectation for what some of those electives will look like. Trying to teach some of the advanced level coursework within the school itself. In other words, geometry as an example, not transporting our young people if we can make that happen, to participate in geometry. And the same kind of thing with world languages. Of those 89 bus runs, there are cases where we're moving an individual student from one school to another school in order to participate in a world language. Not particularly efficient way to provide services, and so we're looking at how we might be able to provide access to perhaps not every world language that we currently provide access to, but ones that we have demand and resources for across the middle schools as a consistent kind of offering. We know for certain we can do Spanish. We're collecting information on other demands to look at what resources might be available, but it looks as though moving into this next school year that we won't have to transport our middle school kids. The principals have worked to align their schedules so that we can share itinerant teachers between schools, something that we've not been able to do previously. So if there's not, if we need to share, for example, a geometry teacher or a drama teacher across the middle schools, we'll be in a position to do that. So we're excited. We're excited about that. We've done something similar at the high school level moving forward. We've adjusted our transportation so that we plan to transport just 3 times during the day, in addition to getting kids to school and getting kids home. We anticipate one additional bus run getting kids to schools where they want to participate in a program, whether that's a stat academy or governor school or cabinet making. And then again at lunchtime, and then again at the end of the school day. So we're going to go from 89 additional runs down to about 37 runs, with some savings there. And that doesn't necessarily resonate with everybody. I'm just going to kind of put that out there. It's sometimes it's hard for folks to understand why we would want to save that $2,000 or that $4,000. And the thing is that we really can't be dismissive of that opportunity, because those amounts add up as we look across the division as a whole. And we think we have a model here that will make us more efficient, allow us to share resources, but also open up opportunities for kids by having more alignment in our schedules. For example, one of the concerns that we've heard from parents in the last year is limited access to AP courses at schools that might offer IB. With greater alignment and a transportation system that is like the one we envision, we think we're going to be able to open up opportunities to participate in advanced level coursework. There's a caveat for the high school folks when we move to transporting just 3 times a day. If you're participating in a half-day program, that works out great. Transportation model works perfect for you. If I want to take cabinetry, I would probably have to take another course at the host school in order to work with the transportation piece of it. But we're working with our principals and schedules, and we think that's going to work for us. So we're excited about that. It is a change, and it's going to be a little bit different. And there was some of that reported in the paper this morning. And anytime that there is change, it can create a sense of not comfortable, right? Particularly for adults. Fortunately, our kids seem to kind of step up generally and do pretty well. So we're counting on them to help us make this work for us going into this next school year. But things are going to look a little bit different in terms of delivery of service, and that's something that I spoke to early on in my tenure. And looking at our comparison divisions, the scope of what we offer seems to be in line with what our comparison divisions offer. The delivery models vary a little bit. And so that's what we're focusing on first, is how do we adjust our delivery model. And then there might be some conversation about doing something different at some point in the future. One of the recommendations that's in the resource utilization study that's got a fair amount of coverage of late was the recommendation to reduce the number of governor school sites, to go from 3 sites to 2 sites. That is not in the works. That is not imminent. Is that something that we need to explore? Well, I do think we need to explore it. Is there additional information that we should collect to determine whether or not that's something that we might want to do? Absolutely. And there might be some value in having 2 larger sites as compared to 3 smaller sites. So it's not about limiting access for young people. It's making sure that we're delivering those services in the most economical way possible, being good stewards of our finances. So those are some of the changes that are in place in terms of how we're delivering services. We've made some significant improvement in our compensation model, and included in your packet is our new teacher scale. At level 0, and it's level 0, not step 0. At level 0, we are at $40,000 as a starting salary, and we've attached the current year scale in there as well for board members to review, to take a look at what that improvement looks like. Our 14-15 level 0 salary was $37,793, and we will be at $40,000 next year. So we're very excited that we've got support for a model that was differentiated in the amount of scale enhancement based upon how far out of the median of the market we are. You'll notice that there's greater gain in the areas that we were further out of market. Not a lot of differential between the levels at this point, but that will improve over time as we get closer to the median of the market. Couple that with the support that we receive from the supervisors for our new teacher institute. We're going to be able to pay our teachers, new teachers that are new to the division, to participate in our new teacher institute in August, and we're planning. That planning is underway. The opening day of that institute is August 24th. We've budgeted enough money with your assistance such that teachers who participate in that will receive $100 per day, so a $500 check, and they will get that on September 10th, which will be 3 weeks before they would have received a paycheck in our previous model. That's kind of the best that we can do at this point. It's not a full paycheck, but it's something to help them in their transition to hopefully becoming a longtime resident of Stafford County.
Dr. Benson, is that additional stipend included within the $40,000, or is that
It is
in
not.
addition to?
It's in addition to.
Okay.
Yes, it is. It's in addition to. So we think that that's an attractive package. And again, we know that retaining folks, good folks, is not all about compensation. There's one element. Your benefits is certainly another piece of it. How you feel about the workplace, that work life, recognition for doing a good job, and opportunities for professional development and growth are round out the top 5. So we're focused on all 5 of those areas. But we feel like we've come quite a long ways in a relatively short period of time, and so we're excited about the opportunities moving forward here. And just want to say thank you. I think this is it's a wonderful partnership. The additional support that we receive from supervisors related to New Teacher Institute, as well as helping us with buses, made a lot of this possible for us. There would have been deeper cuts if that were not the case, and we were able to hang on to some of the things that we think are the most important to advancing the work of the school system, which is about providing our young people the best possible experience in our classrooms. So with that, be happy to try and respond to any questions that board members might
Any
have.
questions for Dr. Benson?
Go ahead,
Ms.
Laura.
Bonke?
Dr. Benson, thank you. Appreciate all of your efforts. This is the first time that I've heard on the CGS side that we wouldn't, as you know, information gets out into the public and it gets spun up into a lot of different ways. But this is, I heard you say that with the CGS program, we wouldn't necessarily be cutting a site. We may be moving a site to the other two sites. So the program wouldn't necessarily be declining the number of students in the program. But my whole point is that we're in the process of discussing that.
Absolutely. Along with the other 97 recommendations that are in
Right.
that study and the recommendations that are in the shared services study. So it's a place for us to start the conversation. They've pointed out areas that we should explore, and in many of those areas we're going to need to collect some additional information if we do decide that there's something that we're going to do differently there. But one of the things that I would say about the governor's school is that with the smaller sites, one of the challenges that our teachers have is working both in the governor's school and in the regular school.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not suggesting this would happen. It's just something I think we should talk about. Might that be the case if we had two larger sites?
Mm-hmm.
That might not be the case.
Right.
So it's something for us to explore. And I think I've said before, I've done resource utilization studies in other school divisions, and quite frequently you get recommendations that don't end up moving forward. You do your due diligence to review the recommendation, look at additional information, and the community, the boards might say, you know what, we value and appreciate and like the way we do this thing. We might acknowledge that it costs us a little more to do that, but that's the way we're going to continue to do it.
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to say that, I was, as chairman of the Governor's School Board for 2 years, there are a lot of rules and documentations and bylaws as it relates to that program, and a lot of the funding is driven by the pupils. So I appreciate you looking into that, and there's Mary Kay Vanderplu has all that information. Thank you.
Ms. Sellers.
Just have a quick comment for you. We talked a lot about the new Teachers Institute, but also the pay raises and what our teachers got paid. And knowing that, the paper will read that we didn't give you everything you asked for, but you guys still found a way to get those teacher salaries up, just means a lot. And I do thank you for that. It shows your dedication, and I know Bob worked really hard on that. So thank you, Bob, as well. He put in a lot of time to make sure we could give that stuff, and Anthony and our staff. So thank you, sir.
Anyone else? Any other questions or comments for Dr. Benson? Mr. Cavalier?
Just a couple of quick things. Just doing a quick on-paper math here without the use of any electronics. There's around 7%, the way I see it, for the starting teacher salary increase from before at the 37 some change to 40.
Last year
40,000
to this next.
from last year
yes,
to this year.
This
So
current year to next year's
7% is significant in today's world, and we're not even counting the additional $500 stipend that goes on top of that, which would put it well over 7%. So I think that was a wonderful idea from you and the school board, and I'm glad we could accommodate that. I also want to just thank you for all your help during the budget process this year. It was the smoothest budget process I think we've had in all the time that I've been on the board, for 12 years anyhow, and I've heard others remark the same. So I think a lot of the credit is due to you, sir, and we certainly appreciate your job more. And the only other thing that I did learn that there's 3 governor school sites, and I didn't know that. I only thought there was 1, so that was something new that I found out this year. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments for Dr. Benson? I'll just echo what Mr. Cavalier said. My first superintendent of schools was T. Benton Gale. I was in elementary school, and he was actually superintendent of Stafford and King George because it was so small. And I have either known or worked with or had dealings with every superintendent since then. And for the first time, I firmly believe we have a superintendent that, not that the others didn't have a compassion or anything like that, but I think we truly have a superintendent that understands what we do, understands what the school board does, and working together. This is the easiest budget season I've ever been through, and there are a lot of other people to thank other than yourself, but believe me, I appreciate everything you're doing.
I think we opened some doors, and I do
Absolutely.
I appreciate the feedback, but I think we opened some doors, and we had some folks step up and say, yeah, we can do this differently, because we certainly couldn't have done it if it were not for it being a team effort.
Absolutely. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Sellers.
While you're here, Dr. Benson, the bus drivers have said that we could come, and I know people have been escorting you through tours of the schools, but I know they've asked for some of us to go and sit on the bus routes with them, and if there's a possibility for
Sure.
that. 5:45 is not a time I'm usually awake, but I'd love to participate in that.
Absolutely, and I don't. We are looking at other positions within the division as well. We have a group of folks that are looking at our compensation model for support services as well, and we're that's also a really incredible partnership with folks on the local government side to figure out what we might be able to do that is maybe this century kind of a compensation model for support services.
Mr. Cavalier.
And just one last thing. Yeah, Laura was talking about that in the back room about the buses, and she suggested that she come on a day in February when it's below zero, and she can start up the buses in the morning.
That's my favorite.
We'll check with the extreme weather team first, right?
Yes.
But that certainly could be possible.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Dr. Benson. We appreciate it.
I could do anything with the right amount of caffeine.
At this time, I'm sorry? 4:30. God bless you. We're now going to presentations by the public. I would ask that when you come to the speaker's podium that you state your name and your address. You have 3 minutes to speak on any subject that you would like. When the green light comes on, it means you can start your presentation. The yellow light means you have about a minute left. The red light means that your time is up. I do have one speaker card. That is Ms. Elaine Callender.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the board. I'm Elaine Callender of 622 Lancaster Street in Falmouth. I was a resident of Falmouth back when Mark Lindsay and Jeff Rouse won Olympic gold medals. It was an exciting time for our family as we watched on our home television two young men who were familiar to us. I remembered both Mark and Jeff as two students who used to hang out together at the library at Stafford Senior High School when I worked with a special needs student there. I always saw the two together, never separately. By the way, I read last night that Jeff and Mark even carpooled to swim practice together as kids. I must say it came as a shock to me when some time ago this board voted to name the new swim facility for Jeff Rouse alone. I was told at the time that Lindsay wasn't included on the name, on the building name, because there wouldn't be diving at the new Olympic-sized pool. My response to that was, you learn to swim before you learn to dive. Now I hear that there will be diving boards suitable for high school dive competitions, so that is not really a reason. I'm thinking what it must boil down to is that Rouse had a personal relationship with the county government, having been employed here and having served on the Parks and Rec Commission. It's also possible that personality was considered, Rouse seemingly the more serious of the two, following a more traditional career path. But I think this board overlooked some important facts. Both these young men brought honor and recognition to Stafford. It's true Lindsay was the daredevil. You have to be a competitive diver. And he did get quite a bit of national and international attention with his charismatic personality. Lindsay ended up focusing on coaching as a career and sadly passed away unexpectedly at age 43. Of course, he and his family should be honored by having the new complex named after him and Rouse. Some facts you may not have been aware of. In 1989, Lindsay swept the Big Ten college titles in the 1 meter, 3 meter, and platform competitions, then went on to win the first of his back-to-back 1 meter national championships. He was the NCAA's Diver of the Year in 89 and 90. His victory on the 3 meter board at Barcelona gave the Americans their third straight title in that event. 4 years later, he earned a bronze. No American diver has won an Olympic diving medal since Lindsay in 1996. That alone is worthy of recognition for this Staffordian who inspired others to follow their dreams. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all the speaker cards that I have at this time. I will ask if anyone on my right would care to address the board on any subject. Please come forward.
Good afternoon. My name's Heidi Simpson, and I'm a resident of the Rock Hill District. And I'd like to discuss the naming of the swim complex as well. I would like to echo the sentiment that was just shared, as I've done the past 2 meetings. I'm currently the vice chair of the Stafford County Parks and Rec Commission, and we unanimously voted, and then again we're asked to vote again, and it passed with majority votes to have the diving complex and swim complex named after both Jeff Rouse and Mark Lindsay. I'm not a native of Stafford, Virginia. I'm come from Fresno, California, and I think that it is phenomenal that one town or community could have 3 Olympians at one Olympics and 2 of them win gold medals. We talk about promoting Stafford and promoting it economically, developmentally, as well as to the greater region. And how better, what a better way to honor the accomplishments of not only Mark Lindsay and Jeff Rouse, but also Conrad Adams, because 3 Stafford residents went to the 1992 Olympics in Barcelona. And for those of you that don't know, Conrad Adams also received a swimming scholarship to North Carolina State, although he competed in pentathlon. So swimming seems to run in our veins here in Stafford County, as well as diving, as Mark Lindsay showed, by switching sports from wrestling to diving after thinking to himself probably, hey, Greg Louganis makes that look easy, I think I could do that. So I think that we should honor his memory and his courage and his conviction and show the future Olympians something, give them something to strive for. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on my right-hand side that would like to address the board?
I'm Ceci Howell, 6 Hunters Court, Falmouth, Virginia. And I echo what they've said. I think to myself, who in a million years would think that Stafford County would have these gold medal winners in Barcelona? We have been friends with the Lindsay family for years, and our son's best friend was Mark Lindsay. So I would ask that you include Mark Lindsay's name. They both followed the same track, and what I think is just unbelievable about the 2 young men, when they won the gold medals in Barcelona, anyone would have said, okay, that's it, I've won, this is my day. But both young men said, no, I want to train for 4 more years and try for the Atlanta. And to think that those 2 young men worked 24/7 on their skills after winning the gold medal to go to the Atlantic Olympics says determination, it says tenacity, it says character, it says everything to me, that they have followed the same track and have done so well and have been such great examples for Stafford County. And so I recommend, as a friend of the Lindsay family and a friend of Mark Lindsay, and Jeff too, that you name this after both of them. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Howell. Anyone else on my right would like to address the board? Seeing none, move to my left. Anyone on my left would like to address the board? Please step forward.
Mr. Chairman, gentlemen and ladies of the board, I'm Stanley Zack. I'm a 38-year resident of Stafford County, the last 23 in the Rock Hill District. My primary purpose here today is very simple. I'm a member of the Virginia County Extension Office's Leadership Council. And my primary purpose is only to bring you, it should be in your manila envelopes on your desk. When we try to get through your secretaries, haven't had wonderful secretaries, know how to prioritize things. We feel that this is a very important program that the Virginia Cooperative Extension places, and we give you probably $6 back on every dollar that you give us. So it's really an amazing program, and if I may have just another minute or two just to give you a couple of dollars. We have 103 master gardeners themselves. They're volunteers. They put in 6,600 hours this year alone. We've had members in there that have over 5,000 hours of volunteer time at plant clinics, at in the marketplaces, in schools. Our dollar value of added value to your organization is probably $162,000 back to your organization. The 4-H themselves, they put in 189 volunteers. They put in over 9,400 hours of volunteer time for servicing our young children from ages 5 to 19. The added value we believe to be $230,000. So that's my only purpose here today, is to enlighten you. Please read this. Please. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, and appreciate everything you're doing. Anyone else on my left? Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. Robert Drystad, 117 Potomac Run Road, Falmouth, Virginia. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. I'm here to speak briefly about the naming of the swimming center. First of all, from my understanding, the board has already digested this. Okay? I get a note today claiming some sort of massive disconnect here at the board that we left out somebody. Me personally, I would hope that this is not the only swim building that Stafford County ever gets. If it happens to be the next one, great. I'm also in the business of dealing with a lot of children. I do have a lot of trouble with an advisory board trying to dictate terms to you. Correct me if I'm wrong. They work for you. It's gotten a little tiresome over the years that even myself, I've had a bullseye on my back from this same body. Somewhere along the way, somebody needs to take control of it. It also pains me that this is close to June 9th, the timing of everything. Got to tell you, it's very distasteful to me personally. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else on my left would like to address the board? Yes, sir. Please come down.
Good afternoon. My name is Bill Pugh. I'm a former principal at Stafford High School. I was at Stafford during the 90s and had the good fortune of experiencing the joy and success that our entire community experienced as a result of the Stafford kids at the Olympics. These kids represented us in a very positive manner. The ultimate measure of success in swimming and diving is the Olympic gold. And both of these guys came home with Olympic golds. I feel like they have earned their recognition in their respective sports, and I would hope that you would consider naming our swim and dive center after both Jeff Rouse and Mark Lindsay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pugh. It's good seeing you again.
Thank you.
Anyone else on my left? Anyone else in the chambers at all? With that said, I'll bring it back to the board. Committee reports by board members. Madam Clerk.
Mr. Milday?
This last couple of weeks, I had the good fortune to attend or represent the county in some cases at the Jepson Alumni Center with the Fleischer leadership event, and our chairman represented Stafford on a council behind a table with the chairman of Caroline King George, and also Mary Catherine from Fredericksburg, the mayor, and he did a great job. Gary, you always impress me up there, but they answered questions for hours from the crowd. Also, I happen to be a Rotarian, but I don't go to very many meetings, but I made sure I made it to the about the 5th or 6th annual meeting of the North Stafford Rotary Club, which incidentally is we have several, but this is the one that did so well for us on the parade, and I hope we can talk him into doing it again. I also went to the Fredericksburg Country Club. The Fredericksburg Chamber sponsored an event, and I never get tired of watching Rob Whitman speak, and he spoke to the crowd there about defense issues. Also, I think almost every one of us were at Ferry Farm. That's one of the most exciting events we've had in a long time, and Doris Buffett was charming, and Doris Kearns Goodwin was there and spoke to the crowd. It was just a great, and Bob, Gary, once again, you guys did a great job. Bob especially did a great job kind of taking the lead in his district. So that's exciting what's going on at Ferry Farm. They're spending a $40 million project, and they've raised almost all of the money to build a replica on top of the foundation of our first president's childhood home. I also with Chairman, they called him Chairman and he corrected them, past Chairman Cavalier, the Yacht Club, and a Speaker of the House, Bill Howe. We have a great 40-year-old yacht club in Aquia Harbor. It's been there as old as the Property Owners Association, and former Chairman Cavalier and Speaker of the House, Bill Howe, did a great job addressing the crowd there, and we had perfect weather, some of the best weather we could ever have hoped for. And then today we had a Community and Economic Development Committee meeting. There were only 4 items on open session. The most exciting thing that actually occurred on closed sessions. I can't share it yet, but it's coming soon, and I don't think it's a secret. It has to do with the Quiet Town Center, but there's a lot of real estate transactions going on and trying to make that come back to life. But we also talked about the counting house in Fredericksburg, the REPU program, where looks like we'll be contending for some defense dollars to save some open space in Stafford. Just another small tool. We're using PDRs, TDRs, conservation easements, a lot of different tools to try to save open space and counter some of the development pressures here in Stafford. And there's a defense program that can help us do the same. And we're revisiting some lighting ordinance and zoning and subdivision ordinance details, and you'll hear more about that. And that's it. Thanks, Chair.
Ms. Sellers?
All right, in addition to attending several of the events with Mr. Milday, we spent a lot of time together the last 2 weeks. I also attended the Governor's School event with Dr. Benson. That was a lot of fun. And you guys will be proud to know that Mr. Smith, Mike Smith's son, was there, and he presented on stormwater management. It was pretty good. Very interesting presentation. I was pretty impressed by our students. A lot of them are going to UVA, so it makes me happy. I was very proud, including, well, I guess your son's going to UVA as well, and some JMU folks are going. So we got a lot of good stuff going on through our Governor's School. And that's all I have.
Mr. Sterling? Mr. Thomas?
Thank you. On Thursday, the 30th, I had an opportunity to participate, and there's going to be 5 or 6 more meetings, I believe, with the elementary school programming. Basically, there, as you know, we have 2 schools coming up, Moncure and probably Ferry Farm. And the last time the specifications were revisited for elementary schools was about 10 years ago. So the schools are being proactive. They put together a working group to basically make sure that we have, specifications that meet today's needs versus what they were a decade ago. We had an opportunity to tour a school at Manassas Park City, which was pretty neat. And like I said, there's 5 or 6 more meetings coming up, so I'm sure you'll hear more about that. The second thing, as most of you know, there's 3 bond rating agencies, and with 2 of them, we've been a tick away from our ultimate goal of AAA, but that Moody's rating has been just a tick below that. But I'm happy to report that within 2 years of our last surveillance from them, they have upgraded the county. from AA2 to AA1. So we are now one tick away from that coveted AAA bond rating with all three agencies. Some of the factors that influenced that, I think, were the county's strong financial management, our financial flexibility. We have a clear history of conservative operating surpluses and budgets, and we are building a multi-year trend of building our reserves and our liquidity. One of the things that a quote I wanted to take directly out of the report says, the long-standing management team has continued to fulfill its minimum 12% unassigned reserve policy and annually updates their 10-year capital improvement plan. As much as I'd like to take the credit for the board, who they're really talking about is our superb financial staff, from budgeting to finance to the county administration. So I'm sure on behalf of the entire board, we want to thank you for your guidance and pushing us in the right direction and congratulate you.
Ms. Baumke?
Yes, thank you. Last weekend, I was able to attend an Eagle Scout ceremony for Andrew Boring. He built a paver pathway over at Drew Middle School, which is actually going to be used by the Heather Enfield Day School students there, such that they're able to wheel their wheelchairs out into the pathways and get a little sunshine and a little air during their day. And based on the people that were there that talked about his project, they said this was a true labor of love. So congratulations to Andrew for his Eagle Scout Award. I also attended the George Washington Foundation groundbreaking, which was great for the new Washington House, and the event with Rob Whitman. And as Paul said, it's always good to hear from Rob. He has a lot to share. And the Jepson Center event with economic development, that was a great event to try to get our counties to all collaborate more on regional issues. So that was the first annual, and look forward to more of those. I just wanted to mention that I met with the Carriage Hills Homeowners Association last night, and the one thing they have some concerns about is the transportation at the intersection of Truslow Road and Route 1 as it relates to either turning right or turning left out of there. So I'll be talking to staff more about that. And I just wanted to echo Bob's comments regarding the rating agency, because when I was in the municipal bond business, the #1 agency that was very difficult to move was Moody's. And so we obviously did something right in order for them to move our bond rating up. Thank you.
Mr. Cavalier?
Yes, in addition to the blessing of the fleet that Paul mentioned earlier, that I attended along with Speaker Bill Howe, who was the keynote speaker there that day. Right after that, there was a Habitat for Humanity groundbreaking on Aquia Avenue in my district, right off of Onville Road in the Barrett Heights section. Paul was also there, along with Mr. Chairman Snellings, and it's the 22nd house, I believe, that they've built there in the Fredericksburg region. So it's a good organization. They do good things for families. Also attended yesterday the opening of a new pediatric urgent care facility in Dock Stones. It was the old Century 21, I think, real estate office that was remodeled right across from IHOP on the entrance road right there. But it basically is going to be a fully staffed, looks like a hospital wing almost, and it's going to be only for children and top-notch pediatric certified doctors who are going to focus their practice only on children, and it's the first of a kind here in Stafford County. The doctors are from Richmond area, and they have a few facilities down there, but this is the first one outside of the area, so we're lucky to have them here. And as far as the infrastructure committee that I'm chairman of, one significant item to note was that we did have a sinkhole issue at the Carl Lewis building that Boy Scout Troop 840 uses on a regular basis, and it's been there for a long time. The building was earmarked for repairs on the CIP, and we have some proper funds dedicated toward that repair. It's just that now we may are going to have to expedite that renovation or rebuild, and staff is working up a plan on that. So we want to take care of that and make sure the scouts are taken care of. And that concludes my report.
Mr. Snellings?
Thank you. Just very brief, I just want to take this opportunity to remind everyone the significance of Friday, May the 8th. It is the 70th anniversary of victory in Europe by Allied forces. I did some research and found that 17 million Americans served in the military during that time frame. 405,399 of them never came back. 1,076,240 were wounded. People at home sacrificed as well. I mean, if you know anyone that was during that time, you'll know what they did. They volunteered, they sacrificed, they gave up stuff for the war effort. There were no demonstrations, no flag burnings, and it really was the greatest generation. So if you know anybody that served in the military or was here at home during that time, on Friday, call them, see them, and thank them. Thank you.
Mr. Shoemate?
Defer any comments, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Romanello?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, just a few quick announcements. At 5 o'clock tonight, the board will break ground on the Woodstream Trail. This will connect the Woodstream neighborhood and other neighborhoods in North Stafford directly to Smith Lake Park and our great athletic and recreation offerings there. That's 5 o'clock tonight, just off of Lucas Place in the Woodstream neighborhood. You may notice blue ribbons as you walk into the Government Center. Today they've been tied around the trees there. There are 37,938 children in Stafford County, according to the Census Bureau estimate. They're all special. 33 of them we'd think are extra special, and those are our foster children. And it gives us a chance to recognize the families who take care of those kids, and in particular Mr. Muse and Karen Stidson and the fine social services staff that make sure that those children who don't have parents are taken care of. So that's what the ribbons recognize today just outside the Government Center, and they will stay there for the month of May. Team Stafford does care, whether it's taking care of our own here at home with donations for one of our staff members who lost her home in a complete house fire, and also this Friday, you may see some folks in jeans around the building. They give a little bit of money, and we allow folks to come casual for the day, and the money goes to help support the recovery in Nepal. And Mr. Chairman, there are no changes that I have to today's agenda. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Romanello. We will move to there are no additions or deletions to the agenda. We will move to the consent agenda. Does any member want to pull anything from consent?
14, please.
Mr. Mildy, 14. Anyone else? Do I have a motion for the consent less 14? I have a motion and second. Cast your vote. Tally the vote. Motion carries 7-0. Mr. Mildy.
I just can't vote for this because I'm personal friends with some of the people, or at least one group. I could do the other 4. I'm not opposed to a quick take, but I...
You don't have a personal interest.
I do not. Yeah, anyway, I'm not going to vote for it. I'm going to abstain.
Mr. Mildy will abstain from item 14. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Cast your vote. Tally the vote. Motion passes 6-0 with 1 abstention. Unfinished business, item number 19, Stafford Regional Airport, proposed resolution R15-41, requests no further airport expansion. Mr. Sterling.
Mr. Chair, we have discussed this. We'll continue to discuss it. The current planned expansion, not only the lengthening the runway to bring in heavier and bigger aircraft, but also the adding the northern route is something that I think, given accidents that we have seen recently in the news, demonstrates the risk that is posed to the people on the ground and to the people of Stafford County. Recognizing that some people would like to go forward with the lengthening of the runway, I would ask that, and I would propose that this board go on record and asking the regional airport, the Commonwealth of Virginia, as well as the FAA, to not add the northern corridor. So they could go ahead, and we won't take a position on the lengthening of the runway, but we would not add the northern corridor, which will take it over neighborhoods. So that is my motion.
make sure I understand the motion. Your motion is to ask them that they not consider the northern corridor.
Yes, that's it.
It does not mention the runway extension, is
Does
that
not.
correct? Do I have a second? Second. I have a second by Ms. Sellers. Any discussion?
I'd like to see a draft of the resolution. I mean, the one that's in front of us has this expansion stuff all throughout.
It's very easy. I mean, just take out the part about the extension of the runway. It's very simple. I'm asking that the board and the chairman would send a letter, take a position in opposition, not to do the northern corridor.
So we're leaving out the stuff about the high school.
We're going to leave out, we can take out all the whereases if you prefer. We would not take a position on the lengthening.
Let me ask the county attorney. Mr. County Attorney, would you recommend that we maybe rewrite and vote later this evening?
I think if Mr. Sterling finds that acceptable,
That's fine.
Is that okay?
that could be done, and staff could accomplish that and bring it back.
Okay, we'll bring it back and vote on it early this evening, or this afternoon if we have time. But we do have a motion.
Well-
Mr. County Attorney, is that motion and second
Table
still
the motion
stand?
for, yeah.
Table's the motion.
He just tabled it.
Okay.
Well, Mr. Chairman, just for the
Yes,
record,
Mr.
I'm
Miller.
voting against it no matter what they take out of it. Just, I don't want to give
You're-
anyone the wrong idea.
You'll have your chance to vote, Mr. Moody, as we all will.
Mr.
Isn't that
Snellings?
okay? Yes.
I'd be voting against that as well. Thank you.
Okay, item number 20, consider renaming the Jeff Rouse Swim and Sports Center. Proposed resolution R15-146, Rouse/Lindsay. Ms. Bomke?
Yes, I move for approval of Resolution R15-147, which is alphabetical on the naming of the center.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Mr. Sterling?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to offer a substitute motion to rename Woodlands Pool after Mr. Lindsay.
I have a motion to rename Woodlands Pool after Mr. Lindsay.
So keep the Rouse,
Yes.
the Embry Mill facility. I'll second that.
And I have a second by Ms. Sellers. Any discussion? Mr. Sterling, any discussion?
No, I think this honors both.
Any
I
discussion?
have
Ms. Bomke?
discussion.
Yes.
Yes. As you all know, there's been a tremendous amount of discussion about the possible renaming of the new Embry Mill Athletic Complex. So if you indulge me for just a moment, I think it's important for the public to understand what's transpired. There was an editorial in today's Freelance Star. I know the General Assembly gives us the authority to name public facilities in closed session, and that is what we did in November of 2014. It was in December that my own Park and Rec Commissioner, who personally knew Mark Lindsay, told me we made a mistake in not honoring both gold medalists. She's also a personal friend of Jeff Rouse's. She does not have any children of her own. She helped get Torrey Smith where he is today, and she was a guidance counselor in Stafford County Schools for 20 years. I do not believe we had all the facts presented in our November closed session meeting to be fair to both Jeff and Mark, and that is why we have these resolutions before us today. I've spoken to the former Stafford High School principal, Mr. Bill Pugh, who spoke with you today. I also spoke to Mr. Jimmy Jones, who was not able to be here today. He was the athletic director during the time period that the boys were at Stafford High School. I've also talked to many teachers who all knew Jeff and Mark. The common thread in all of their comments was that Jeff and Mark were both very different individuals, but they both deserve to have their name on the building. In fact, Mark was a wrestler and changed to diving when he was 16 years old after watching Greg Louganis, as some of our speakers just said. It was only 8 years later that he achieved the Olympic gold in diving. Jeff's accomplishments were outstanding as well, and we are honored that he continues to live in this area and he will continue to give to the community. By adding Mr. Lindsay, it will only add to the story of our new athletic complex. What other public entity in the country can name their pool complex after 2 Olympic gold medalists? We can use these personal stories and accomplishments to motivate and inspire young people, regardless of the sport, by showcasing the attributes of both of these champions that they made. They were successful, they were leaders, they had courage, They had a work ethic, and they had great positive attitudes, and obviously dedication. Let's not forget that $2.8 million of the dollars for this facility came from the proffers of Embry Mill. But let's remind each other that there was $10 million that came from the hard-earned money of taxpayers in the state, in our county. Let's draw positive attention to Stafford County, our history, and this new and exceptional facility by acknowledging how very unique and fortunate we are to have had two of our own rise to such an extraordinary level in their respective events within the aquatics realm. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Bomke. Any further discussion, Mr. Sterling?
Chairman, just real quick, I
Yeah.
do need to correct Ms. Bomke. It was not named in closed session. In fact, I made the motion in open session to do so. So this was not done in closed session. I think that many of the points she makes, what better way to do that than we'll be naming two facilities, one after each Olympian. So I think that that is good, and we should look at a way. We have another Olympian gold medalist in Stafford, or that was from Stafford, and we should look at a way to recognize them. And I understand that maybe 5. So we should look at recognizing all of them in their individual ways. We certainly don't want to put 5 hyphenated names on a single facility. We should look at 5 opportunities. My proposal will name a facility for each. We've already named the Rouse facility. This would rename Woodlands after Mr. Lindsay. So with that, I would just suggest we vote.
Any further discussion?
I have a question.
Mr. Thomas?
I'm not as familiar with Woodlands Pool. Can somebody from staff tell us the difference between the two pools? Are they both Olympic pools?
No.
Or maybe somebody up here knows that, because I'm not as familiar with Woodland.
I can tell you that, first of all, the Rouse one is not yet built. The Woodlands is not Olympic, but it is a pretty good pool. I'm there every morning swimming, so is the swim team. We've all used it. It's a very good one. I think the only other Olympic pool we have is Curtis Pool. But it is a great facility. I'm doing my training for the swim part of the Ironman there, so it certainly meets the needs of what somebody would need to train for significant sporting events.
And the reason I voted to build this in the first place, I think Mr. Mildy and I were the swing votes to actually build the facility, was that this was going to be a regional attraction that was on the size and scale of nothing like anything close to us anyways. So I guess I'm trying to contemplate the resolution. I guess to me it feels like we're talking about a brand new facility that is going to be recognizable throughout the region, and then we're talking about our other pool that's kind of been here for a while, and I think we have to rehab it, and it's got a bubble on it. We're going to do some things to it here to make it even better, but I guess to me it just feels like the two are not even in the same ballpark, and I don't know if anybody has a problem with that. It just doesn't feel the same to me.
Any
Mr.
other
Chairman?
discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I feel that is very unfair and very unjust. The Woodlands Pool is like the Pleasant Valley Pool that, Mr. Chairman, are you listening? Thank you. It's like the Pleasant Valley Pool where Mark Lindsay learned to swim and dive. So I think there's a huge disparity. And I think if you take a straw poll of people in the community, you've all received emails on this. This is about what is right. This is about what is right. And, there is a huge difference. It's like a Mercedes and a Chevrolet. I'm sorry, and that is wrong.
The Sellers.
I have a quick.
And there's no diving at the Woodlands Pool.
I have a quick comment, and both the pools are in the Garrisonville district. And Woodlands Pool is an excellent facility. No, it's not brand new. Yes, it does need to be rehabbed, but it'll get there, and it currently serves a purpose. We have some stuff there all the time. But as I've said to just about every email I've received on the topic, when I took this into consideration and I thought about it, and I've spent a lot of time around very high caliber athletes. Spent some time with Olympic caliber athletes, in fact. And one of the things that stands out to me every time when we have this discussion, and I said it in the back room, is that what you earn and the accolades you get for being the best athlete on that day is a gold medal. When you come home, and Mr. Lindsay was a great person. I spent all weekend reading about him. Great person. But Mr. Rouse has done it here. He came back here, and he's a part of our community, and he's given back to our community. every single day, and he still does. And that's why I'm going to support naming this brand new facility after Mr. Rouse. It has nothing to do with his Olympic accomplishments. He has a gold medal for that, a couple of them. But what he's done for our community is something that we'll never be able to repay him for. And this is a way, and this is going to honor him. And it's not just for him, it's for his family, it's for his friends who helped get him there. He didn't get there alone. He couldn't drive to those practices. It's for every kid that he's coached or mentored or anything. It's not just Jeff Rouse the man, it's Jeff Rouse the person who's helped all these other little kids. That's why I've supported it the whole time. It has nothing to do with just the Olympic gold medal, which I think is an admirable in and of itself. But I will support renaming Woodlands Pool for Mr. Lindsay and stick with my original vote for
Call
Mr.
the
Bell.
question, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, I'm sorry, Ms. Kavanaugh.
Call the question.
I have a motion to call the question. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Cast your votes. Tally the vote. Motion passes 5-2. That is a 2/3 majority. The resolution is
To rename.
R 15-146 to rename the Jeff
Red-
Rouse Swim and Sports Center. I'm
No,
sorry.
No, the resolution is a substitute to rename
You're
Woodlands
correct.
Pool after Mr. Lindsay.
I didn't make very good notes, did I? The substitute motion is to name the Woodlands Pool after Mark Lindsay. Cast your votes. Tally the vote. Motion passes 5-2. Mr. County Attorney, I need your opinion. Proposed resolution R 15-147 reverses the name from Rouse Lindsay to Lindsay Rouse. Does that proposal resolution need to be considered, or can we move on?
No, sir. You have, by the substitute motion, you have preceded the prior motion, and that prior motion is behind us, and we're now ready to move on.
Thank you. Mr. Thomas, would you take us into closed session, please, sir?
I will do. I'd like to offer a resolution to authorize a closed meeting, whereas the board desires to hold a closed meeting for number one, consultation with legal counsel regarding probable litigation where such consultation in an open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating or litigating posture of the board, and two, discussions concerning prospective businesses where no previous announcements have been made of the business's interest in locating their facilities in the county. Pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3711A5 and A7, this discussion may occur in a closed meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Cast your votes. Tally the vote. Motion passes 6-0. Ms. Bumpke, you voting? 6-0 with one not voting. We're in closed session.
I haven't gotten any angry emails yet.
Tim, could you ask him to turn on?
Right across the street, we're going to Ponte Villa. It's Cinco de Mayo.
Mr. Thomas,
I'd like to offer a motion to certify closed meeting.
have a motion certified. Have a second. Have a second. Cast your votes. Tally the votes. Motion passes 7-0. Mr. Mildy.
Yes, I'd like to move a resolution to approve an award of future incremental taxes to Mosaic Realty Partners to incentivize the redevelopment of the town center at Aquia. It does not have a number on it. So,
Mr. County Attorney.
I think
You all right?
Deputy Clerk will assign one. Is that correct? We'll take care of that administratively.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any discussion? Cast your votes. Tally the votes. Motion passes 7-0. We are on adjournment until 7 p.m. All right.
where's Cord?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, I should say, and welcome to the 7 o'clock edition of the Cinco de Mayo Board of Supervisors meeting. To begin with, I'd like to ask Ms. Bumpke to lead us in prayer, and Ms. Sellers will follow by leading us in the pledge. So please rise.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we are here today to represent the citizens of Stafford County. We ask for your guidance as we deliberate on the public hearings before us and how these projects align with the vision of our county. Lord, we ask for prayers today for Lori Knowles, the county's Deputy Chief for Emergency Medical Services, and her family, and Laura Baxter, County Fire Volunteer, and her family for the loss of their home in a terrible fire. Lord, we thank the community for their generosity and the support of these families as they begin to rebuild their lives each and every day. Please give them the strength they need during this life-changing event for their families. Lord, we also ask for prayers for Johnny Wharton, who we just lost in the county this past week. We also ask for prayers for Gloria Shelton's family, who served as the Superintendent of Schools Administrative Assistant for 27 years, and just yesterday lost her fight to cancer. Please, Lord, please support all of these people during their difficult times and all of their families. In your name we pray. Amen.
This time we have a couple of proclamations, which I'm very honored to do, and I would ask Coach John of the Colonial Forge High School state champion boys basketball, or men's basketball team, I should say, to bring his team down front so we can do a proclamation for them in light of their great achievement. Well done, guys. It's 2 years in a row. Let me, first of all, tell you how proud I am of these guys. They've had 2 state championships for basketball in a row, last year and this year in the 6A division. I'll tell you a little story. Back in 1964, I was a junior at Stafford High School. Stafford High School then was what is now Drew School. And our team, for the first time in history, went to the state championship. And I got on a bus at about 10 a.m. in the morning and took a road trip to Blacksburg, Virginia, to watch Stafford High School play in the state championship. And we lost. So we had to wait. I had to wait 50 years. I know I don't look that old. I was only 8 at the time. I had to wait 50 years to get a state championship. And last year, we finally got a state championship. They had a great dinner. I actually found some of the members of that 64 team. They went to the dinner with me, and lo and behold, we were awarded again with a second state championship. So on behalf of the board, I want to take this opportunity to, first of all, congratulate you, and also to present you with this proclamation. And I'm assuming we're going to have a three-peat. How many of you are back next year? Raise your hand. Oh, yeah, you'll have a three-peat. Whereas the Colonial Forge High School basketball team defeated Westfield High School 47-46 to win the 2014-15 6A state championship, and Colonial Forge High School boys basketball team was the first state basketball champion in the newly formed 6A district for 13 and 14 season, as well as the first team from Stafford County to ever win a boys basketball championship at the state level. Quite an achievement. The Colonial Forge High School boy, and they keep saying boys, I say men, basketball team is the first in the state to win back-to-back state basketball championships in the Virginia High School League's highest classification. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Stafford County Board of Supervisors on this 5th day of May, 2015, that it be and hereby does recognize and commend the Colonial Forge High School boys men's basketball team for its excellent representation of Stafford County and outstanding achievement in winning back-to-back 6A state championships. Thank you, guys. Keep my glasses up here because sometimes these proclamations are kind of small. So if I throw them on real quick, you know I can't see. I'd like to now invite Coach Dale Oliver of the Colonial Forge High School wrestling team to come forward with his team. This is Colonial Forge's night. Now, Colonial Forge has always been known to have a great wrestling team. This is their 5th state championship, which is kind of unheard of. I mean, it's unbelievable. So now Colonial Forge is going to be known not only for wrestling, but basketball as well. So these two teams have really made us proud. So if you'll give me an opportunity to read this proclamation. Whereas the Colonial Forge High School wrestling team, the Eagles, won the 2014-15 6A championship, and this is the 5th team state title for Colonial Forge High School wrestling team. Whereas Josh Nail won an individual state title in the 126-pound weight class, his second straight. Which one's Josh? Congratulations. Patrick Grayson won an individual state title in the 220-pound weight class, his second straight individual title, and was named Freelance Star Wrestler of the Year. Patrick, well, you're the 220 pounds, so I kind of figured that one out. Not that I have any room to talk. You're built. I'm not. And whereas J.D. Stone won an individual state title for the 130-pound weight class. J.D., congratulations. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Stafford County Board of Supervisors that it be and hereby does recognize and commend the Colonial Forge High School wrestling team for their excellent representation of Stafford County, winning this year's 6A state championship, an exceptional achievement in winning 5 state championships. Thank you guys for making us so very, very proud.
Why not Oklahoma State?
Thanks so much.
Right, Coach? Oklahoma State?
They got some good guys there.
We won 9 of the first 10 NCAAs.
Thank you, guys. We appreciate it. sorry. Okay, always like to do those presentations. Certainly makes us feel proud of Stafford County and it makes us feel proud of our students. Now we'll go to presentations by the public. I would ask that if you care to speak to the board this evening, you're able to speak on any subject. You have 3 minutes. When you come to the podium, I ask that you state your name and your address. I would also ask that you look at the lights on the right side of the podium as you're facing it. Green means go. Yellow means you have about a minute left, and red means please wrap it up. I have one speaker card, Mr. Hank Sharpenberg.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Hank Sharpenberg, 36 Winning Colors Road. As chairman of the Airport Authority, sitting in this afternoon's session, reading Mr. Sterling's resolution and listening to his comments, I feel compelled to set the record straight. The Airport Authority is not lengthening our runway for bigger aircraft. We're lengthening it to accommodate the existing category of aircraft that use that runway and to entice corporate customers who use those types of aircraft, such as Geico, to give them the safe distance they need to feel comfortable operating in our airport. Every step we take in this process is documented, available to the public, approved by the FAA, Department of Aviation, and is not a secret. Second, contrary to the written resolution, anybody who's ever looked at the flight patterns for our northern and southern traffic patterns will see clearly that neither one flies over any school or any dense residential development. When Colonial Forge is built out sometime in the near future, there is a potential that the northernmost pattern may come in proximity, but even then, it's no guarantee that it would even fly over that particular development. There will be no high-density development in that northern pattern unless this board sees to overturn the Planning Commission's rejection of the George Washington Village rezoning request, which, if in that case, will put 1,500 homes with the concurrent demands upon overburdened schools, already crowded roads, and struggling county services right in Miss Sellers' district. The northern traffic pattern will enhance safe operation that is already safe at the airport, but ensure that it continues safe as we expect to expand the count of aircraft, existing categories of aircraft that use our airport. And it will reduce risks to the population, mitigate risks as we expand in the future. Ultimately, it's going to benefit those who live in proximity to the airport by ensuring that we minimize the risk as much as possible and operate an already safe airport as safely as possible. Finally, I'll be here all night to answer any questions any of you might have on what the airport is intending, what it is doing, and the implications of what is being considered tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That's all the speaker cards I have. I'll go to my right-hand side of the room. Is anyone on my right care to address the board on any subject other than what's on public hearing tonight? Anyone at all? Seeing none, I'll move to my left. Anyone on my left care to address the board?
Paul Waldowski, 8 Picket Lane. I came dressed in orange because I really wanted to see the state championship award and the proclamation, especially for Coach Dale Oliver. To have 5 state championships is a great thing. I know, living in the Rock Hill district, the Mountain View High School wrestling team always comes by, and I try to support them, but I also let them know about the Oklahoma State Cowboys, because this is the 100-year anniversary of the team's first season that started in 1914 and finished in 1915. Once again, OSU had another great year. They are the second team in NCAA history to record 1,000 dual victories, joining Iowa State University. And anyone who's familiar with what was called the Big Eight, it's quite an honor for any wrestling team or any child. And if any wrestler is interested, they need to contact me, because I can put them in contact with OSU alums. I am a life member, as is T. Boone Pickens. One thing I'll leave with OSU is when the NCAA came out, the first 10 championships, we won 9, only losing to one of the finest teams in Oklahoma in 1936 from sweeping those first 10. Now let me get down to business. Happy Cinco de Mayo. You know, Saturday is 5/9/2015. It's 1 month from the primary, so I encourage each of you to get out there and vote in the primaries. This past Sunday, my mom would have been 81 years old, and I always remember her in many, many ways. I don't think she ever knew what Cinco de Mayo was, but I'm sure she's well aware of those aspects. It was also the beginning of the 6 months till Election Day, which is going to be Tuesday, 11/3. Keep everyone in mind about that aspect. And here's a few other updates that I found out walking door to door. I keep hearing the school system is 4 steps behind, so I like to remind the public that if you're at the top of your basement stairs and you walk down 3 stairs, just like Mark Harmon does on NCIS, and all of a sudden 4 steps are missing, what do you think's going to happen? Ooh, you're probably going to fall through it. And finally, the $7.6 million Mountain View Road project is just another pothole in the county.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else on my left wish to address the board? Anyone in the chamber at all? Thank you so much. I'll bring it back to the board. We will go back to one item, item number 19, that was rewritten from this afternoon's discussion. That's Resolution R15-41. That's the rewritten, a resolution requesting that Stafford Regional Airport cease an additional northern traffic pattern, and that the Commonwealth of Virginia and Federal Aviation Administration not approve the northern flight pattern. A motion and a second has been made. Any further discussion? Any further discussion?
Let's vote.
Seeing none, cast your votes. Tally the votes. The motion fails 4-3. Item number 21, public hearings. Planning and zoning consider a proffer amendment at Stafford 95 Business Center. Proposed ordinance O15-19. Proposed resolution R15-122. Mr. Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. May I have the computer, please? This is a request for a proffer amendment pursuant to application RC 15150576. This proffer amendment was sponsored by the Board of Supervisors. The request is to remove proffers from property that's currently zoned M1 Light Industrial. It's located in an area known as Centerport on Assessor's Parcels 3814B, 14F, 14G, 14H, 34D, and 34E. The total acreage involved is 177 acres. This map shows the location of the property. It's in proximity to Interstate 95 to the east. Sorry. Interstate 95. We also have Stafford Regional Airport, which is adjacent to portions of the property. The property is also bounded by Centerport Parkway and Raymouth Church Road. This is an aerial view of the property. As you can see, it's highlighted in red, and it gives you the relationship of these parcels relative to the airport. The buildings you see on the screen here are the sorry, the pen is not cooperating tonight. Our terminal buildings, as well as the main hangars for the airport. Some of the history: this property was originally zoned in 1989 as part of what was known as the Centerport development. Centerport development was a larger collection of properties, roughly 800 acres in size. It had a combination of residential, commercial, and industrial properties. This is a large chunk of the industrial portion of the project. The commercial and residential portions were mainly located adjacent to the existing Centerport interchange. The proffers were amended in 1992 based on the then bank ownership of the different portions of the properties. At that point in time, the economy had changed, and the original developer had some issues, and the bank ended up getting the property back. And that scenario has played itself out again, which is partly the reason for this case, and I'll get into that in a little bit more detail. As we know, in the last 26 years, some of these proffers that were made at that time have already been satisfied, or a number of them have already been overcome by adoption of regulations by both the county and the state and federal government. The owners would wish to remove these proffers because of concerns about the confusing nature of them and lack of enforceability and or ambiguity in the proffers, which could lead to uncertainty by potential purchasers. The owners of the property currently are M&T Bank, which owns the vast majority of the area being rezoned or having the proffer amendment apply to, and a small portion of the property is owned by Raymouth Road LLC. The current transportation proffers allow up to 60,000 square feet on the property before any transportation improvements must be made. They include a right and left turn lanes at Raymouth Church Road and Centerport Parkway. That project currently is within VDOT's SSYP. It's a county-initiated project. There's also in the proffers contribution or consideration made for improvements to the intersection of Raymouth Church Road and Route 1. This is currently in VDOT's SYIP. The proffers also contemplated providing land for Interstate 95 at the interchange with Centerport Parkway and potentially contributions of bond funds for that parkway, for that interchange. The interchange has been since completed and built, so those proffers have been satisfied. This is an image showing the county's project at Centerport Parkway and Raymouth Church Road. You'll note that now the current alignment follows adjacent to the existing building and storage yard on the image, which is sort of at an odd angle. In order for this section of the road to be accepted by VDOT, the county's had to realign the road to come into a full T intersection. As you can see from the diagrams, there'd be right and left turn lanes from Centerport Parkway onto Raymouth Church Road. And these are the types of improvements that are contemplated in the initial proffers. The initial proffers do not obligate the developer to build these improvements, other than they would need to be in place prior to 60,000 square feet being built overall on the property. There are environmental proffers on the property which have limited force and effect in today's world. They talk about complying with existing codes for stormwater management, wetlands impacts, erosion, and non-point source pollution. All of these things have occurred, and ordinances have been updated multiple times in the last 25, 26 years since the property was initially zoned. Also, there was discussion about reserving open space within the project. Currently, our code requires that for the M1 zone, there be a minimum of approximately 20% of the site has to be dedicated for open space. Additionally, we have Chesapeake Bay Act requirements, which in and of themselves reserve open space. Mentioning the Chesapeake Bay Act, this map shows the resource protection areas within this vicinity. There are a number of streams in the area, noted Reedy Branch, an existing lake which is adjacent to Centerport Parkway, and some tributary streams. These are protected by the Bay Act and would remain as undisturbed open areas. The proffers also contemplated giving 60 acres to the Stafford Regional Airport. This has already been accomplished. The 60 acres were given to the county, which in turn used those to help meet the county's match towards the initial construction of the airport. The proffers also speak to landscaping and buffering, in particular that there be a streetscape plan. Under today's zoning regulations, they're required to have street trees along every major roadway in the county. Also, there would be preservation of tree areas. Based on our current code today, they have to preserve trees in the resource protection areas. Also, there's incentivizing in our ordinance that allows people to get credit for retaining existing trees instead of having to put in new landscaping. There's a requirement in the proffers to have parking lot landscaping, which now is a codified requirement. Also, the proffers currently speak to establishing an architectural review board. As the board may recall, every year you look at appointing new members to an architectural review board. Presently, that architectural review board only deals with another portion of Centerport, which is not associated with this property. And it's appointed group that's comprised of property owners. Under the current situation, that would be a little bit difficult for this owner to commit to that, in that M&T Bank, by its operating guidelines, cannot be a developer, so they cannot commit to any specific development plan or architectural designs for new construction. Also, too, it kind of puts this developer, this property owner, into a bit of a bind, in that other property owners in the nearby area, which are not part of their overall land holdings, have some sort of potential control over how the buildings would look within their property, and that puts them at a competitive disadvantage. Buildings within 500 feet would be of masonry construction. This proffer is very vague. It doesn't say what type of masonry construction. It could be poured concrete, it could be cinder block, or it could be a really nice brick facade. The county has no control over what type of masonry materials would be provided. We also note that the comprehensive plan does give guidance to property owners, and that our neighborhood design standards give some guidance to them in that regard. However, it's not a code requirement. As I mentioned, there are landscaping requirements for parking lots, but also we in our ordinance stipulate that loading areas, storage areas, trash receptacles, they all have to be screened from public view along the street right-of-ways. Also, the signage requirements and proffers limited certain numbers, height, and size of the signs. Those are all currently regulated by county requirements, which this proposed existing proffer, may pose conflicts with the current code. Additionally, the proffers right now stipulate a 75-foot building setback from Interstate 95. The county regulation is a bit more strict in that it's less of a distance, 60 feet, but they have to have a buffer, which is landscaped area, which the current proffers do not speak to that. Also, the proffers stipulate a 50-foot setback from Centerport Parkway. The code requires for industrial properties that they be set back 40 feet from a public street. This, in staff's opinion, this 10-foot difference is not significant given the nature of industrial type of development. Additionally, lighting is discussed in the proffers, which now are again code requirements. Maintenance and repair of landscaping and fencing and walls is in the proffers. That is also again code requirement. And then there'd be no loading platforms within 500 feet of I-95 unless they're screened. And as I mentioned earlier, we do have screening requirements. So as you can see from all that, for the most part, the existing proffers don't have any significant bearing on how this property could be developed. The comprehensive plan recommends this property for business and industry, also resource protection uses. This existing zoning is compatible with that designation within our comprehensive plan. The positives are, from a staff perspective, it's in conformance with our plan. It's consistent with the idea of industrial development in a nearby area and with some of the activities starting to occur on the airport and other nearby properties. At this point in time, staff sees no apparent negative impacts with changing and eliminating the proffers. We are recommending approval of this application. We will note the airport authority supports the proffer amendment. Their one condition of support was asking that the owners provide a sanitary sewer easement to help facilitate sewer construction at the airport property. The application includes a letter from M&T Bank indicating their willingness to provide that easement. The Planning Commission, in its deliberations, has recommended approval unanimously. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Harvey? Thank you, Mr. Harvey. This time I'll open the public hearing. Anyone that would like to come speak, please step forward, state your name and address. You have 3 minutes, and as I said earlier, the light's green for go, yellow for 1 minute, and red is please stop. I don't have any speaker cards. Anyone on my right wishing to address the board on this issue? I Seeing none, anyone on my left?
Paul Waldowski, 8 Picket Lane. This is not an issue. This is an opportunity to improve something that needed to be improved a long time ago. When you look up the word proffer in Latin and look at its roots, the word pro means a proposal, and the word offer is an offer. There is no enforcement. There's no code requirements. What we did in the 20th century, sometimes we need to learn from and get a 21st century robust aspect and move forward. I really spent a lot of time going through a lot of these aspects of this, and I'm a big fan of RPAs, protection of wetlands and floodplains. I see no reason why you should not approve this. They comply with all the applicable codes, the setbacks, the open space, even now the Chesapeake Bay Act, which wasn't even discussed probably in 1989. And one thing we really have to be aware of is when you have an architectural review board that I call a roving target, because you have appointed property owners who have their own vested interests and sometimes don't really look at the aspect of the county as a whole, as you all are represented for the county aspect. And I think you need to be well aware, I've said this before many times, when you make decisions that feel good versus that they do good, you need to readdress them and take care of what's holding back, especially M&T Bank, who is obviously not a developer, but trying to be a good neighbor in regards to this. As was discussed, the comp plan shows that this should be business and industry related. It's definitely looking to make it a resource protective area. And the one thing that they are proffering, that they are proposing, is the sanitary sewer system on behalf of the airport, because that's what it is to me. But in that regards, I believe that you will remove the proffers in regards to these 6 parcels.
Thank you very much. Anyone else on my left wishing to address the board on this issue? Anyone else in the chambers? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. Mr. County Attorney, I think I need Mr. Cavalier.
Yes, I'm going to abstain from voting on this as I have a potential business interest in one of the parcels involved.
And Mr. Chairman, I'm going to have to do exactly the same thing.
Okay.
For the same reason.
Anyone else? Mr. County Attorney, I think we need 2 motions. Is that correct? One for the ordinance, one for the resolution.
Move for approval of ordinance 01519.
I have a motion on approval. Any discussion? Hearing none, cast your votes. Tally the vote. Motion passes 5-0 with 2 abstentions.
Move for approval of resolution R15-122.
Have a second?
No, we're good. We're good.
Just one. We're good to go.
Just the one.
Thank you, Mr. Harvey. Item number 22, Planning and Zoning. Consider amendments to County Code Section 28-35, Table 3.1, District Uses and Standards, and Section 28-39, Special Regulations regarding farmers markets. Mr. Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You explained the nature of the code amendment. Essentially, our zoning ordinance allows farmers markets, but it does not currently allow them in the residential zones. This amendment would allow farmers markets within residential zones, provided that they be located within common open space within a neighborhood. This came at the Stafford as an initial request from the Woodstream neighborhood. They would like to establish a farmers market within their neighborhood. At the time the ordinance was being developed, it was looked at mainly at commercial districts, not realizing that neighborhoods themselves may have a desire for this type of activity. Staff believes that this proposed ordinance would comply with all the county rules and regulations pertaining to farmers markets, as well as our goals and our comprehensive plan. And staff and Planning Commission both are supportive of this amendment.
Any questions of Mr. Harvey? Yes, Mr. Thomas.
I had a question in committee, and I think it was answered, but I just want to double check again. If I have a community that has a community space, but it's not very big, and there's really not a lot of parking, am I going to get complaints because it's now a by right use and there's going to be 30 cars parked in everybody's driveways trying to get to this, or because they have to go through some sort of approval process, the parking would be part of that?
Yes, Mr. Thomas. Parking would be addressed. There is a two-part approval process. One part is to go to the Agricultural PDR Committee for them to review the proposal, in particular, what is the proponent's plan, how many vendors are they looking at having, which would generate the need for parking. Also, the county must issue a zoning permit, so we need to have a layout of safe access in and out and adequate parking.
So it's a by right use, but we do have safeguards in place that should keep it from becoming a problem.
Yes, sir.
Good.
Anyone else have questions for Mr. Harvey? Thank you, Mr. Harvey. Bring it back to the board. Open the public hearing. Anyone on my right would like to address the board on this issue? Seeing none, anyone on my left?
We have time to change. Oh, this is a fun one. Paul Wildowski, 8 Picket Lane. How much I love houses of aristocrats. HOAs. You know, here we are. We've established the 4th tax in the county. You know, we already have federal, state, and county taxes. And those of us with HOAs, which I have 2 of them, I have another tax. And you bring up a good point about parking, but the same aspect that comes into play, even though you get a permit, and we are addressing the safety issue of it, how are we going to enforce it? You know, this looks to me like you're specifically favoring one group of individuals to establish a farmer's market that is generally set up for commercial, and to use a by right use, and we're going to set, so when's the next HOA going to come here? And we're going to do the same thing and take them one at a time. I don't know how many HOAs we have in here, but I think you're setting a precedent that's looks like it feels good, but does it really do good? And I'll leave with this analogy. Lady Justice has the blindfold on. It's supposed to represent fairness. The farmer's market is a good thing for the county and the aspect. But when you put a pirate's patch on one of her eyes, you're favoring just a group of individuals in one HOA, and then favoritism doesn't work out to be fairness for the most number of aspects. And public safety is still one of my key concerns in regards, because I see this all the time when people come do lawns. They come in and park, and they park right next to the stop sign. Then the school buses can't get in. And fortunately, farmers markets aren't in play usually when kids are in school. But this is just another example of, do we have all the facts associated with this entity? This looks to me like it is an issue, not an opportunity.
Thank you. Anyone else on my left wishing to address the board on this issue? Anyone else in the chamber? Yes, sir.
Patrick Walsh, 46 Greenleaf Terrace. Interesting concept, and I fully support it. Farmers market, community markets, helping draw neighbors together, helping give a sense of purpose and community to individual neighborhoods. It's a win-win for everybody, and I hope you support it.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else in the chamber like to address this issue? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing, bring it to the board. Do we have a motion? Moved by Mr. Mildy, a second by Ms. Sellers. Any discussion?
I had one question.
Yes, Mr. Thomas.
Farmers markets sometimes quickly turn into flea markets. Do we have a definition for farmer market in the zoning ordinance? Something that kind of pens that in? Sure, we probably do. Just want to
Yes,
make
sir,
sure.
we do.
Okay, good. And I know Woodstream HOA kind of brought this to our attention, but Briarwood homeowners has a big 6-acre plot, probably with 30 parking spaces. They could absolutely come tomorrow if we approve this and request something like this as well, right?
That is correct.
It's not just this HOA.
Correct. This proposed amendment applies to 4 different residential type zones, so it could apply to any community that's within those 4 zoning categories.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, cast your vote. I guess we'll get a motion first, didn't I? You did make the motion. Tally the vote. It's been a long day. Tally the vote, please. Motion passes 7-0. Item number 23, Public Works authorized condemnation and quick take powers for the Poplar Road Improvement Project, proposed resolution R15-120.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Christopher Rapp, Director of Public Works. We have advertised to hold a public hearing tonight for consideration, condemnation, and exercise of quick take powers for tax map parcel 35-92-6 in connection with the Poplar Road Improvement Project.
Computer, please.
This road project combines 2 originally separate projects, Poplar Road Phases 1 and 2. Poplar Road Phase 2 was approved by the board in 2011. The main goal is improvement of road safety. We have successfully negotiated property acquisition agreements for all properties. Unfortunately, we were unable to finalize one agreement due to bankruptcy. Tonight's public hearing is to consider condemnation and quick take for one property, parcel 35-92-6. The owners are Jeffrey and Joanne Bouchard, and from this property, the county requires right-of-way and temporary easement. This is a overview of the property on Poplar Road. This is a more detailed overview showing the street dedication and temporary construction easements. The county's consultant, KDR, provided an offer in May of 2014 of $2,500. The property owner at that time counteroffered, and in June the property owner, the county agreed to the counteroffer, and the property owner signed the agreement. Subsequently, the county signed the agreement. However, in December, the county was informed that the land is part of a bankruptcy proceeding and the closing and acquisition could not be finalized. The county must establish ownership prior to construction activities on the property. A construction contract has been signed with Branch Highways. Construction has commenced. You should see signage out there, traffic control signage already, and clearing for portions of the project will begin early this month. And to not delay the project, we would need access to this parcel by late spring, by next month. Staff recommends approval of the proposed resolution R15-120 in order to not delay the project. This includes compensation in the amount that was agreed upon, $4,435. We'll continue to work with our consultant to finalize this acquisition. And that concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to take any questions at this time.
Any questions for Mr. Rapp? Yes, Ms. Sellers.
The agreed amount was the one that the property owners countered with?
Correct. The original county offer is $2,500, and the counter offer by the property owners was $4,435, and that's the amount that is in the resolution.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Rapp. I'll open the public hearing. Anyone on my right-hand side would like to address the board on this issue? Please step forward. Anyone on my left? Please step forward. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the board. Ms. Sellers.
I'd like to make the motion to approve R15-120.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Cavalier. Any discussion? Cast your votes. Tally the votes. Motion passes 7-0. Item number 24, Utilities. Consider amendment to the county's pump and haul policy. Proposed resolution R15-106. Mr. Smith.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Mike Smith. I'm the Director of Utilities, and I'm here today to talk about our pump and haul program. May I have the computer, please? The county currently has 2 pump and haul programs. One is for existing residential units and places of worship. Those are subsidized pump and haul. The other is for commercial, and that is non-subsidized, although we do have some residential that are currently on the non-subsidized. Those are ones that don't meet our criteria for the subsidized pump and haul. On February 5th, 2013, the board asked the Infrastructure Committee and the Utilities Commission to consider modifications of the policy. After a public hearing at the Utilities Commission and several iterations of the policy changes, the Infrastructure Committee recommended combining the 2 policies with several changes, the most significant of which I will go through. As I said, the 2 policies were combined into one. Because they were combined into one, we needed to identify the specific categories for each user. Under the subsidized pump and haul, we have the grandfathered users, which are our current customers, and those customers will be limited to 5 years. So for the next 5 years, they will pay the same rates that they've been paying with the current policy. The second is our temporary pump and haul customers, and those will pay the same rate that they currently pay, but those are only for approved neighborhood projects. So while we're in the middle of designing a project and getting it built for those customers, they'll pay the grandfathered or the current rate. And the third is the prorated. Those are based on federal poverty guidelines, and those will be for all new customers that meet those guidelines. And then the second category is the non-subsidized. That's similar to our current program. Anybody who doesn't meet the subsidized criteria will fall to that non-subsidized. The county will evaluate all the customers as a part of this new policy. The Infrastructure Committee suggested that we check over the next 2 years all of them to make sure they meet the criteria, which means they're county-owned and there's no feasible technical alternative. If they don't meet the criteria, they will be moved from the subsidized list. All new participants will either be non-subsidized or prorated, meeting the federal guidelines. The eligibility will be handled administratively. It won't have to come to the Utilities Commission or the board because the guidelines are much better now that the board has set them out, so we can do this administratively. However, we do give an option for them to appeal to the board if they don't like the decision made by administratively. The customer will be required to provide, as I said, it's based on the federal poverty guidelines, and the customer will be required to give us their income tax every year to see where they fall in, so we can check to see what kind of subsidies they will be eligible for. The customer will pay the hauler directly and then will submit to the utility department a request for a subsidy. The guidelines are shown on the screen. On the left, we have what the 2015 poverty guidelines are set by the federal government. On the right shows what our percent subsidies will be. So if I have examples, if you have based on the current poverty guidelines of $24,250 for a family of 4, our policy will allow a minimum subsidy of 10% of the actual cost if you make $70,325 or less. If the household income is more than that, then the customer would handle the full bill. Currently, the grandfather customers are paying approximately 10% of the current costs, of the actual cost. The average monthly hauling cost is about $250 per customer. That means the customer now pays about 10% plus the administrative costs. Once removed from the grandfathered list, these customers can apply for the prorated amount or continue as non-subsidized. So after the 5-year window, if they meet those federal guidelines, they can apply for the prorated subsidized amount. If not, they can continue on our permit. They will just pay the hauler directly their cost. I have some examples of what that cost would be depending on the usage and the gallons per month. We show what our current connected customers pay, what our current grandfather rate is, and then I have it broken down for 50%, 30%, 10%, and zero subsidy. And you can see the cost goes up as the usage goes up, both because they're using more and the cost of it is higher. The county would pay less once you get over 10,000 gallons, 6,000 and 10,000 gallons. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Smith? Ms. Bumke?
Yes, so how are we going to be doing the program moving forward with all new customers?
New customers.
Everything will be based on the new income levels that have been established.
New customers will be based on the income levels. They will be prorated if they meet the criteria. If they're owner-occupied existing residential unit, and they have no technically feasible alternatives, and VDH certifies that, then they can apply for a prorated subsidy. If they don't meet those criteria, they can come on as a non-subsidized and be under our permit, because individuals can't be under the permit for pump and haul, only the county can. And so they could come on as a non-subsidized or as a prorated.
All right, thank you.
Any other? Mr. Mildy?
It's worth noting that that becomes something that does not come to the board anymore. One of the things I liked a lot, if you've been here for these over the years, that the county administrator would make the decision, or?
Correct. It would come through, I'd make a recommendation, and the county administrator or his designee, which could be the director, would make that decision, and we would base it on the criteria that had been put forth by the board.
And of course, one of the questions that came, this is a product of a lot of work from the Utilities Commission and different groups over the last several years. But we could, if somehow the floodgates seemed to be opening, and we were worried about the rate at which people were being added as subsidized, we could revisit this.
Right, and each month with our monthly report, we'll note on the report how many we have and what change there has been from the month previous. So the board will be notified anytime we add somebody to the prorated subsidized list.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Thomas?
So for grandfathered, let's say we have future, insight, and somebody's going to fall off at the end of that 5 years. From what I understand, within 2 years, you'll have looked at everybody, so they'll have at least a 3-year period to kind of prepare for what if, how are they going to handle it at the end of the 5. So minimum is like a 3-year prep time. Is that safe to assume?
Well, it's 5 years from whenever this is passed. Over the next 2 years, we'll look for those that don't meet the criteria, and they will be removed. If they don't meet the criteria, they'll be removed. If we find an alternative, because we hire a consultant to do a soils analysis, if we find an alternative, they'll be given 6 months to get off. That way they can install the system and get off the subsidized list. If they don't meet the criteria because they're renting or they're doing something that they shouldn't have been allowed, then we will just ask them immediately they won't be subsidized any longer.
So there's no sort of warning. You show up, you do your analysis, and then the next day we're kicking them off the system?
If we find that they're
maybe shouldn't have been in the first place.
Right, if it's not owner occupied. But if we find an alternative system is available, they'll have 6 months to install that system.
Okay.
Mr. Mildy?
That's a condition that most of them have been aware of anyway, right?
Right. That in 2006, the board added that owner occupied as a condition. I don't know that we've strictly investigated and adhered to that. There may be some that are rentals that we haven't been policing. And with this, we will go out and check that.
Any other questions? I have one question, Mr. Smith. You said county administrator has approval based on your recommendation.
I believe the policy says the county administrator or his designee, so if he decides to designate it to the Director of Utilities, then I would make that decision.
So appeals come to the board?
Appeals would come to the Utilities Commission and the board.
Okay, thank you. No further questions? Thank you, Mr. Smith. We'll now open the public hearing. I will start on my right-hand side. Anyone on my right like to address the board on this issue? You have 3 minutes. Please come up and state your name and address.
Thank you for hearing me. I'm Paula Burns at 111 Autumn Drive. I purchased my house in November 2001, and it was my dream house. I saw the brochure, all the information, water, septic, and it said that it was on pump and haul, and I thought that I was asking all the right questions as to what pump and haul was. I was advised that it was a subsidized program, that my system would be pumped out and I'd be paying the same cost as people on water and sewer. Didn't ask any other questions until I went into the utility department. I was told that maybe I didn't ask the right questions. I forgot to ask if it was a disputed program, if the county was losing money. I didn't think about asking that question. Obviously, if I knew it was a disputed program, the county was losing money, they wanted to discontinue the program, my husband and I would not have bought the house. So I have this house and can't stand it. Absolutely gorgeous place, I hate it because of this program. you can give us 5 years, grandfathers in, and we should appreciate that, and we probably do. But none of us here are going to be able to afford an alternative program. There's no way. I just can't magically come up with this money. I like to say that I've done my research. I know that Virginia Beach, I know that the city of Fredericksburg, Yorktown have done other ways of extending some type of a sewer system to homes that had failing drain fields. I know for a fact that they have gone out to get government grants and other monies to help fund their projects in order to help their citizens, and I like to see us do that here. You can go forward with this, but I can't see that any of us are going to be able to sell our homes if we're going to be paying the full cost of pump and haul, prorated or otherwise. I cannot sell my home. It's been up for sale. Nobody came in to see it. I will not lie to anybody about the pump and haul program. So I'm asking you please to consider putting us, I think there's 24, 25 of us, to grandfather us in. Those homes that are rentals, you'll have to deal with those, but grandfathers, and we have done the best we can. We all want to pay more money. We can't pay the full cost, but we are more than willing to pay more money. And I'm putting that out to you, and I appreciate you letting me talk.
Thank you, Ms. Burns. Anyone else on my right would like to speak? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Darrell Burns. I live at 111 Autumn Drive. Just to give you an idea about our property, we have had our soil tested multiple times already. And the only way we can get an active system in my home is to ask my neighbor for a 1/4 acre of his property. Nobody's going to do that. That's number one. Number two, an alternative system is going to cost me between $30,000 and $40,000. Which one of you can write a check for $30,000, $40,000 overnight? I can't. I just can't do it. Now, according to his own figures, if we're going to go off of our tax records, I'm going to be paying $425 a month for a sewer bill. Who's going to buy my home at $425 a month for a sewer bill? I didn't ask for my house to be put on this program. It was done long before we bought it. The other thing, too, is we've been to multiple meetings with the county boards over the years. We were told we were grandfathered in one time. Now we're told we're not. Now we're going to do this. Now we're going to do that. We just need something that's going to be finalized one way or another, because to be honest with you, this has been a nightmare trying to figure out what we can do to fix a problem that we didn't ask for. I wanted to move in my home with my wife and live the rest of my life to it. I don't know what else to do. I don't have 40 grand to pay for a system. I can't ask my neighbor to give me part of his property. And the county wouldn't approve that anyway. So what am I supposed to do? I can't afford the bill. In addition to what else I've got, I'm in between a rock and a hard place. Like the rest of us, we can't afford to do this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Anyone else on my right would like to address the board?
Hi, I'm Ivy Walsh, 46 Greenleaf Terrace. I'm a pump and haul customer. My house was already on pump and haul system when we considered purchasing it. My husband and I relied solely on the information provided directly by Stafford County Public Utilities through a phone conversation that as a pump and haul customer, we would be treated like every other sewer customer and pay the same rates. Stafford County Utilities offered no other information. There are people that feel Stafford County should not be in the business of this subsidizing this program. Well, we're not the ones that started this mess. It was the original Board of Supervisors that did. It was too bad that the original board did not realize at the time that by helping those past customers, they would then victimize all future owners. So now, it appears that it's okay to dump this mess on us. We are the ones that are going to lose value in our homes, who would want to buy with several $100s added per month to the cost of maintaining the house. If you force us to install an extremely expensive alternative system, then it sticks us with the cost for which we did not bargain for in the first place. There were no allowances made in the original purchase price to cover this. We thought the system was permanent and that it would always be subsidized because that's what the utility department told us. If you pass the proposed changes, will you instruct the Commissioner of the Revenue to give us huge real estate tax breaks to these grandfathered homes that may still not be able to add an alternative system and will not have public sewer service or working septic system? Is Stafford County going to loan us the money, interest-free, to install the alternative system, if available, and give me 20 years to pay it back? People are now burdened with these homes. They will lose their value or be burdened with high cost of installing an alternative system. Whether Stafford County wants to admit it or not, they had a big hand in allowing the misinformation on this. So to reiterate, are you telling me it was my fault as a consumer, that I believed what the utilities department told me, and that I should never really believe another government entity and what they tell me? It was Stafford County that gave out poor information. It was Stafford County that gave out no information. It was Stafford County that wrote poorly worded contracts leading to misinterpretations for this whole system. You have been told by legal counsel that you do not have a legal obligation to continue. Do you have a moral obligation? Thank you. I also ask the sentiments of Mr. and Mrs. Burns. May I place this in the record, please?
Yes, ma'am, you may, if you would hand it to the clerk. Mr. Harvey, could you hand it over for, please? Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else on my right would like to address the board on this issue?
Thank you, Patrick Walsh, 46 Greenleaf Terrace, Stafford. First of all, I want to thank all of you and the previous boards and the Utility Commission. This has been a daunting task. I wouldn't wish this upon anybody, but I do appreciate the effort that has been given. With regard to the Utilities Commission, it's probably not often that those folks are faced with potentially hostile speakers, but to their credit, they did what Stafford always does. They rise to the occasion, come up with solutions, address problems, and I certainly appreciate it. We were treated with a great deal of respect and dignity by those groups and previous boards, and hopefully we'll continue with this board. I'm almost at a loss of words, and I think the effort here is a good effort in getting this out of the board. It shouldn't be on the board. It should be in the utilities department. I think the method of paying for it can often be up for debate, but we've all paid property taxes. There's your source. There's your funding for all of this. The property taxes that we've paid on parcels that we're not going to be able to sell. If there wasn't a house on it, you couldn't build one because there's no systems. So I'd like you to consider even trimming this down more, give it over to the utilities department, and if you need money to pay for the cost of subsidized pump and haul or pump and haul, you get it from the taxes we've already paid. That's the best I could come up with on short notice. But thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Anyone? I'm sorry, sir.
And maybe since you passed an ordinance on farmers markets, put one in my front yard and maybe help offset my costs. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else on my right like to address the board? Yes, ma'am. Please come down.
Hello. My name is Tracy Schlaud. It's SCHLAUD, 9 Rosehaven Street. We purchased our house in 2010, and we were told by the realtor, the owners, and the health department when we called about the information of what this program was. They said it was going to be this is the way it is. You can't get off of it. There's no way to do it. It's going to always be this way. It's going to be this way until everything burns down. Not the houses, no. We don't want to beat a dead horse, but there's got to be another way. None of us are going to qualify for those poverty guidelines. If we qualified for them, we would not own our houses in this area or the houses that we own. There's just no way. If you guys want to come over and hang out for a month and see what we deal with on a monthly basis, that would be great. I invite you all to my house. My poor husband, who's back there shivering to death because he's wet, would love for you guys to come over and see the things that we do to make sure we use as little water as possible. There has to be a better way to share this cost. We didn't put the houses on there. I think we might actually be one of the newest members or families on the pump and haul system as far as the houses purchases. I lost my train of thought. Just so mad. Long story short, we're not going to be able to afford $425 a month. I have 4 children. One of them's graduating this year. We've got one in first grade. So we're going to be in this house for a long time. I plan on retiring in this house. My husband works in Fairfax County. We plan on being here for the next 20 years. In 20 years, I need to be able to sell this house. And in 20 years, I guarantee you we'll be able to come up with something between now and 20 years from now. In 5 years, it's too soon. There's not enough time. We would love to be off this program. Every single one of us would love to be off this program. Nobody likes having that tank alarm go off the day before Thanksgiving with 10 people on their way over, and knowing that the pump and haul people aren't going to be over until Friday, maybe Saturday if they're off on Friday. When that alarm goes off, you have 200 gallons left. That's it. You got to make sure you flush when you need to flush, shower really quickly. You can't wash laundry, and you can't do your dishes. Well, you can do your dishes, you can't run dishwasher. So you have to be very careful with your water. We are all very careful with our water. So please, please try to get them to come up with a better price for us. Please. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else on my right like to address the board on this subject? Go ahead, sir.
First of all, I apologize for my dress. Just got off work and got stuck in the rain and rode the motorcycle to work. Nathan Schloud, 9 Rosehaven Street. Like my wife just stated, we purchased the house, talked to everybody that we were supposed to. They were all told us that we would be on the pump and haul permanently and it'd be subsidized. I don't know if anybody here would disagree with me that $400 a month is a minimum to pay. I don't know anybody in this room that could afford a $400 sewer bill. There's nobody out there in the county that is getting county water. We pump our own water out. It comes out of the well. Nobody in the county is paying a $400 water bill. If you guys pass this, you have just destroyed our homes, because there's no way that anybody in this world would ever buy a house that would have to pay a minimum of $400 for pumping out 2 tanks at 1,000 gallons. Like my wife said, it is embarrassing. It is freaking frustrating when that tank alarm goes off and you're trying to do laundry. You got friends, family, relatives coming over for Thanksgiving and or Christmas. If we could get off this pump and haul, I would love to get off the pump and haul in a feasible manner, something that we could afford. $40,000 to $50,000, maybe that would work. The truck comes into our driveway once a week, pumps us out. There is nothing better than the smell of raw sewer in July and August. All right, we would love to get off these pump and hauls. It destroys our driveways. Okay, there's got to be some other way that we can find other than giving us a 6-month window after they come in and they deem it necessary that we get kicked off this pump and haul. That's all I have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else on my right like to address the board on this subject? Seeing none, anyone on my left? Yes, sir.
Bob Butler, 73 Chapel Heights Drive. I guess I probably was either the original or very close to being the original person on pump and haul. I've been on it since 1991 in May. The house was built in 75 or 76, so a certified drain field when the builder built it obviously wasn't certified very well because it only lasted 14, 15 years. I've now been on pump and haul almost that long. So something had to go wrong way back when the house was built. and somebody approved the contractor to go in there on the drain field. To make matters worse, I had to spend, at the county's request, i.e. the health department I was working with at the time, because it wasn't under utilities, I spent $27,000 trying to come up with a solution at the county's direction. I didn't put a backhoe in the ground, the county had me do it. I didn't put any gravel in the ground, the county had me do it. After $27,000 and numerous phone calls to the county by my contractor, telling them it doesn't work and it won't work and we will not take any more of these people's money. The county finally said, okay, that's it. But it cost me $27,000 just to get the pump and haul. Do any of you have pump and haul? Can't be a lot of appreciation for it then. I know you guys work hard, and I know every one of you have meaning, and you want to do the best thing you can for county citizens. There's no question in my mind. There's no doubt about that. But I now feel, after 27 years in the military, I now feel like pump and haul has become my second career, because I spend so much time dealing with it on a weekly basis or a monthly basis or what have you. That's just, I never know when it's going to come to an end. I'm retired now. I'm 73 years old. You want me to come up with $40,000 or $50,000, take that away from my kids, my grandkids? Because of something I didn't cause? I didn't cause this system to fail. But somebody on the engineering staff somewhere said, this is the drain field. It will work for 30 years, 40 years, whatever drain fields are expected to work. So, bottom line, I guess, to me is, has the county tried anything else? And yes, I don't mind paying more money for pump and haul. I'll be very honest with you. But I'm not going to pay more money than I could go out and buy a new car for every month. That just doesn't make sense to me to pay $425 a month. Do you pay $425 a month for sewage and water? Why are you asking me to do it? I'm not saying that the county has lots of money and just throw it at this pump and haul system, but something has got to give. You're asking 24 or 25 people to come up with tons of money that they may or may not have. I don't know anybody's financial situation. Being grandfathered in, the 5-year program, I'd just like to ask if I could.
Sir, you need to address the board.
How do I get off from this? We're talking about this 5-year program. I'm confused as to when the testing starts. Do I even have the right to have the testing by the county? Or is it somebody just going to say, your 5 years is up, Butler, you're done? I don't have the answer to that, and I don't think I got it tonight. Maybe it was said and I just didn't understand it. But I'd like to have that addressed as to what warning am I going to get that my 5 years is ended or about to end?
Yes, sir. I'll have someone from utilities talk with the individual on it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else on my left care to address the board?
Paul Wadowski, 8 Picket Lane. I'm glad I got to listen to all those constituents because it changed my approach to how I'm going to bash you on this one. Because, you know, I'm against the Utilities Commission in the first place. We're the only county, I challenge you, Google Virginia County's Utility Commission. We're the only one that shows up. Now, this is very similar to what FDR faced in many rural counties when people couldn't get electricity or telephones. And there was, how would we help a farmer, get electricity? God forbid. You know, we need to look back at those laws. I still think they're applicable today because I think they'll apply for broadband as well as for pump and haul, especially for these 24 or 25 people. You know, putting people, even to build this chart and call it a percentage of poverty guidelines in the 10th richest county in the country is a disgrace. There is no reason why you should be bringing this about. Sure, the county's losing money, but you know what? You built the Rocky Pork Reservoir, so, you got all kinds of money inside the utilities company. All you have to do is do the research in the Commonwealth. There's 95 counties. There's money. I hate to bring up R82-341, but I don't get that county water and sewer bill, and neither do those other 29 subdivisions that are in there. But I'll stay on track of where I'm at. You got to do something. In the first place, you got two distinct bodies, the Infrastructure Committee and the Utilities Commission. Either one of them's got to stay or one of them's got to go. You got two collaborations and you're not coming up with a solution, or maybe the solution feels good. You know, to who? It's obviously does not do good to these 24, 25 families, and especially the ones that are starting off. I like the guy who came up on a motorcycle. I used to drive a moped on an Air Force base, so my wife would have the car to get around the base. And the guy went to work in the rain just so he could support his family. And you're going to bring up $425 for a water and sewer bill. By the way, remember, I don't get one of those. And then you can't even build drain fields that last, he said 1975 that house was built, and he bought in 1991, so it didn't even last 20 years. It's a disgrace.
Thank you. Anyone else on my left like to address the board? Anyone else in the chamber? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, bring it back to the board.
I have some questions.
Mr. Mildy.
The idea of permanence, it seems like we talked about that a little bit. Can you want to, I would like them to address everything you heard, but the whether this was promised as a permanent solution to the 20-odd folks.
The contracts that were given out in 1998 said 10 years. There was never anything in the resolution that said permanent. There was never anything, as far as I know. I don't want to dispute what these people say. They talk to utilities people. As far as I know, everyone has understood that it's not a permanent subsidy. We can't say that anything is permanent. I don't know that you guys can say that anything is permanent because there's future boards that would make decisions as well.
So you said that the ones that were given out at one point said 10 years. Are there others that were given out that might not have said that? I'm just...
Right.
I mean...
We have several contracts through the years, and there's a couple of different iterations. Most of them gave an expiration date. Some of them did not, but none of them said anything about subsidies. Because the pump and haul permit, having a contract to be on the pump and haul permit is different than the subsidy. And so the contracts didn't say anything about subsidies. We left that to the board and the ordinances on fees and rates to set that. The contracts were just that you could be on the county contract as a pump and haul customer because the Virginia Department of Health requires them to be on the county permit because individuals cannot be on a pump and haul permit by themselves.
We're hearing a figure thrown around between $30,000 and $50,000 for an advanced system. I have one, and of course it's 10 years old, but I didn't. It cost $25,000 for 10 years ago when I did it. What's the price range of a?
It depends on the system and the difficulty in the soil and everything else, but they have come down in price. But they range typically between $20,000 to $40,000.
$40, but it fit our cost. The cost to administer the system is several thousand a year.
About $95,000 to $100,000 a year currently.
So you could somehow, it would be better if we'd find a solution. It'd be better an advanced system. It'd be cheaper in the long haul to somehow. Do we have any kind of a grant program, or is it possible that we could, in the cases where people could have an alternate system, where we help them finance a system?
Most of the grant programs for these types of things to extend sewer systems are usually for neighborhoods that are have poverty issues. I don't know that we would qualify for any of these. A lot of these properties are quite far out, and to run a line for a single property or for a group of properties would be difficult.
I'm not talking about running a line. I'm talking about loaning them the money for an advanced system.
Loaning them the money for the advanced system. I don't know. I would have to look into that and get back to you if the Department of Health has any of those kind of subsidies or grants.
All right, I'll save my comments for a minute.
Mr. Cavalier, do you have a comment? Then I'll go to Mr. Thomas.
Just a question. This $425 a month fee that is charged if you were paying the full fare, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Who provides the service? Is it county?
No,
or is it contractor?
It's a contractor. It's a septic hauler. What we have done is we've gotten a contract. We've asked for an RFP for the pump and haul system, and we've gotten a contract, and so we pay 8.5 cents a gallon, and that's a relatively good price because they don't have to go in like they do if they come and pump out your backyard system. If you have a septic tank, they have to find it, dig it up. So we pay a little bit less. moving forward, we would try to get that contractor to honor that for our non-subsidized customers as well, and for anybody on the prorated system. So they would pay 8.5 cents per gallon that they used that month. And they would have to pay the hauler directly, then they could submit the invoices to us, and we would provide a subsidy dependent on the prorated system.
So we don't add anything to that contractor cost?
We have our $10 administrative fee that all of our customers charge currently.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Thomas?
Actually, questions piggyback both of the previous ones. We can't do it cheaper? If we had a dedicated truck that went around, that's all they did, there's 26 or more customers once a week? I'm just
we hired
curious.
a dedicated, or an employee to do that, and we got a dedicated truck to do that. We may be able to do that less expensively, yes.
But not significantly so to where you're like, we should do, I mean, this is the way to save money, right?
I would have to look into
Okay,
that.
I'd be curious to see the number, because if we can provide it cheaper, that may be part of the solution here. And I was thinking along the same lines as Mr. Milday, you know, back when the board first started this, the county portion of the cost, had they known it was going to be this long, they probably could have put in back then a $20,000 alternative solution, and it would be done by now. The amount of money is seeming to be soon anyway to exceed that. So I was curious if there maybe isn't grant programs, and maybe I'm getting close to a closed session item here. If within the utilities department, if there was a $20,000 cost and we could somehow help finance that, I think in the end, after they're all paid for, the county still saves money, and that'd be somewhere between $150 and $350 a month to put in a solution where there's a alternative that might work. Just maybe some ideas to kind of throw around.
Okay, I can look into that.
Mr. Sterling?
Is there any reason we can't create a grant program?
That's what I'm wondering. I mean, maybe,
it doesn't have to exist.
and eventually we get everybody off of it. I mean, that would be the goal. Not everybody can get alternatives, so it doesn't take care of everyone, but I would definitely like to see if we can maybe think creatively like that.
Go ahead.
For this, I would move to
Do we have
defer
this on
this.
closed session?
I'm sorry?
What did you say?
No, I was just.
No, I said go ahead.
I thought maybe
I might
my
hear
questions
it.
might be leading
Then I'll
us to
come
a
back to
closed
Mr.
session
Sterling.
item, so.
I just moved to defer this until we can get some more information on potential alternatives where, I agree with the speakers that are out there. I'm not about to sort of toss them to the wolves. So I think that we need to look at what the other alternatives are. I would continue the existing system if we can't find an alternative approach, such as if that's what it costs and it's cheaper in the long run, we can create a grant program to enable them to put in the alternative systems where viable. But I think we got to do some homework on that and then determine where to go, so.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Cavalier?
I have something. to say.
Another question, again, well, kind of for staff to determine how many of those original 25 or so are still currently owner occupied, because I think we need to focus on that aspect first and take care of those people.
Ms. Baumke?
Yes, I just wanted to thank everybody for coming out. I've learned a lot about Pump and Haul over the last couple of years, and I believe the woman that spoke was the one that spoke at a utility meeting and said that you all really, truly watch your water consumption or usage, and my utility commissioner brought that up with me. So I thank you for being a conservative steward of the water usage. And I thank you, the gentleman who thanked the utility commission members, because they have worked very hard on this this problem for a long time. And you're right, we don't have all the answers right now, and I echo the deferral.
Mr. Mills, you have something else?
I do, because a couple things I want to say. First of all, the poverty guidelines that are set forth, we know those are low. There's no magic in those. You can make them double or triple. I'm going to tell you, I got to get this off my chest. The idea that somebody thinks that we owe this to them regardless of their financial situation to me is outrageous. This money comes out of the taxpayers' pockets or utility payers' pockets one way or the other. So if you'd rather buy a new car, if you can afford a couple new cars, I'm not sure where you fall down, then you shouldn't be getting subsidized pump and haul in my estimation. And that is the goal of this, is to try to figure out who has money, who needs it, and who doesn't. If you're wealthy or relatively wealthy, of course you shouldn't be having the county or the taxpayers pick pick up a $400 tax bill. I'm sure you've heard this before. Well, some of you new folks haven't. This has been going on for 10 or 12 years since I've been here and before. We're the only county or city in the whole state of Virginia that subsidizes pump and haul. So it's a very unusual situation you guys find yourselves in. And how it got started, I know who started it, and I'm not surprised. But now you've come to expect something, and I understand that, and it isn't fair, and we should try to find a way to work with everyone. But truly, if you have money, if you're well-to-do or close to it, I don't think the county or the taxpayer should be paying to subsidize your pump and haul. By the way, the average tax bill in Stafford County doesn't come close to paying for what your pump and haul costs. $10,000 a year doesn't take a lot of years. It takes a couple years, 3 years, 4 years to pay for an alternative system. So there's a lot of work that was put into this. We're just talking about the part about the people that are getting the grandfathering part. Even if we come to a conclusion that we should leave everyone on that's not wealthy, the rest of it really needs to be kept in place going forward. I think it's the best work we've done in 10 years on this. So the idea, and also people selling their homes. I don't know how to deal with that, but the idea that people are buying homes thinking that they're okay. Of course you would assume that no matter what you've read. If the house was, if you're able to sell the home and your closing agent doesn't warn you, then that's just completely unacceptable and unfair. So maybe we should look at a provision that doesn't allow you. If you can't rent your house, you probably shouldn't be able to sell it, or we should at least talk about that a little bit more. So what we're going to do, Cord, is look at a dedicated truck, maybe look at the financial guidelines, double them or triple them. Look at the idea of a grant or loan program, and if you don't mind, I'd like to know more about the selling of homes that have this condition, the few that have it. But we should continue. When would we start to look at the ones that are not really eligible, they violated their provisions? So should we hold off on that too, the ones that might be rented? Or
Well, I think, Mr. Smith, you want to answer that?
As I stated earlier, that's been in the resolution since 2006. So we would be happy to begin policing that if the board would like us to move forward with that tomorrow.
A great choice of words. I can wait until we come back or do it tomorrow.
Mr. Thomas. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Miller, you finished?
I am, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Thomas.
To end things on a lighter note, none of us are on Pump and Haul, but I live in a house with 8 ladies and 2 gentlemen, and I'm on well and septic, and sometimes I feel like I should be on Pump and Haul because I do have mine pumped out every 9 months just to be safe. And it is not fun, when guests come, making sure they're not, luxuriating in showers. So I totally understand from that perspective, and I think we'll get to a good solution here.
Anyone else? I'm sorry, sir, the public hearing is closed. I'm sorry, sir, the public hearing is closed. I agree with Mr. Sterling. I think we need to find some alternatives here. One of the things that stuck in my mind through your presentations, it's easy to sit in committees and make decisions without seeing the human person sitting in front of you. But I keep asking myself a question: who would buy a house if they thought they might have to pay $425 a month in sewer bill? No one. No one's going to do that. So that tells me that those of you that have bought houses that had existing pump and haul were given the impression by someone, I don't know who, that this would go on forever. So I think we need to defer. I agree with Mr. Sterling and Mr. Mildy's motion to defer, and let's see if we can come up with some better alternatives. With that said, cast your votes. Tally the vote. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you so much. Mr. Thomas, would you carry us back into closed session, please?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to offer a resolution to authorize a closed meeting, whereas the board desires to hold a closed meeting for discussions concerning prospective businesses where no previous announcements have been made of the business's interest in locating their facilities in the county. Pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3711A, 5 and A7, this discussion may occur in a closed meeting.
I have a second? Second. I have a second. Cast your votes. Tally the votes. Motion passes 7-0. We're in closed session.
Motion to
We're
certify.
back from closed session. Mr. Thomas, motion certified. Do I have a second? Second. All cast your votes. Tally the votes. Motion passes 6-0 with one abstention. Our meeting is adjourned for the evening.
Okay. Just, Jack, make sure they note in the record you abstained.